Hello and welcome to another episode of Sum of Our Parts, the podcast where two friends talk about the movies that add up to make us who we are. I'm Lindsay,
And I'm Jim.
and today we are talking about a movie that Jim picked. So, Jim, tell us about the movie.
Once again, a little known movie. You'll have to search your memory banks. Probably nobody ever heard of it. It's called Saturday Night Fever.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were a boomer like me, if you didn't have this album, and yes, we call them albums, then you didn't know music, and you didn't you weren't with it, as we would say back in the day. So, movie came out in 1977. I was in college. I was 20 years old, and to a small town in West Virginia, this brought disco music and disco fashion to the wild, wonderful West Virginia, where we went from wearing blue jeans and flannel shirts to polyester pants and leisure suits and platform shoes. So,
Excellent.
yeah,
Excellent.
it seemed like it was an overnight phenomenon, that we went from listening to the Eagles and to the Bee Gees and then Gloria Gaynor and disco and all that other stuff. So,
Mm.
but it played a very big part in my growing up. I alluded to earlier before we began recording that this was the date movie to take either to take your date if you were dating someone, or if you wanted to take someone on a date to get to know them better. This was the movie to go to because most of the young girls, or most young women while we were in college, this is the one that they wanted to go see, that was palatable. And it came out during the holidays, came out December of 77.
Hmm.
So that was always a big thing, going into the movies during the holiday season.
Yeah.
And you called it something, what do they call it now?
Cuffing season. Well, because you were saying that people wanted to like go on dates and stuff around the holidays and it's
Mm-hmm.
cold out. And these days, the kids call it cuffing season
There.
because that's when you want to kind of lock it down. You want to have your person
Oh,
through the holidays because it's cold. You're not going out and about searching for people. So that's sort of when people, as it's getting into the fall and winter, getting into the holidays, people try to lock it down. So
I'm
cuffing season.
I like that. So anyway, so anyway, so I picked the movie, and I asked you, I think, and you had not seen the movie before.
I had not. I have probably seen like bits of it because my dad is close to your age. He was like a
Mm-hmm.
senior in high school, I guess, when this came out. My dad loves the Bee Gees. When I was a kid, he was always playing the Bee Gees, and I hated it at the time. I've come to appreciate the Bee Gees. I've come to appreciate like disco, but like when you're like 7, I was just like, I don't want to hear these like falsetto men harmonizing anymore.
Or the perfectly coiffed hair.
Yeah, yeah, because he would watch like they had a concert special at one time that was on
Mm-hmm.
like HBO or something, and he was always
Mm-hmm.
watching that when I was a kid. I was like, I do not want to hear or see these people. But yeah, this is very much my dad's thing. Like I said, like my dad loved Grease, so I think my dad loved the sort of like, this is sort of John Travolta shooting to stardom era.
Sure.
And yeah, like my dad loved the music. I think, he probably of based on pictures I have seen, he was also going for this look at the time. So it looks like he did his hair like that. That sort of like blow
Oh,
dry thing.
we all had
The coif.
we all, back then when I had hair. Oh yeah, and I wrote down. I blew my blew dry my hair, and then not as I didn't pay as much attention as Tony did, Tony,
Yeah.
the main character. But oh yeah, that was always, my high school yearbook. I think we all tried to emulate
Mm,
that look. So
hmm hmm
especially at the dances, as
Yeah.
homecoming, prom.
Yes, of course, of course.
So
Yeah,
anyway,
definitely. Yeah, I had not seen it. I will also say I this was like darker than I thought it was gonna be. I was like, oh, fun, disco, dancing. It's a movie about dancing. And then I was like, oh, there's a lot going
mm-hmm.
on here.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about it when we recap, but I was like, oh my God, this is not what I expected from this movie. I just thought it was about like John Travolta dancing.
Well, and in all honesty, I didn't really recall the last the darker bits either, and not in that vivid detail. So where
Mm,
everything was going on and so on and so forth, and I guess what stayed with me was mostly the clothes and the music and the
yeah,
dancing. So and
yeah.
but anyway, so I will say that I would probably go see this again at the movie theater because
Mhm.
when they do the dancing scenes, I always like, and I remember, watching that on the big screen back then, and I thought the photography was very good,
Mhm.
how they filmed that. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I think that looks like it would be very cool to see for sure.
hmm and the director was
British.
trying British.
John Badham. He also directed the 1979 Dracula with Frank Langella,
Angela.
Blue Thunder, War Games, Short Circuit. That's only one
Ooh,
of his movies I've heard of, Short Circuit.
oh, the War Games with Matthew Broderick was
Mhm.
excellent, and then
Yeah,
Blue
yeah. Well,
Thunder
I've
with
I've
Roy
heard of
Scheider.
yes, I've heard of War Games and I've seen Short Circuit, but I've never
Mm.
heard of these other ones.
Oh,
Stakeout, Bird on a Wire, The Hard Way. It seemed like he did a lot of like sort of like more actiony
hmm
kind of things. Point of No Return, and then I think he's directed a lot of like episodes of television. But
and it was produced by Robert Stigwood, who was a really big uh, name back then as far as doing he was a manager for Cream
mm-hmm,
and Andy Gibb and the Bee Gees.
mm-hmm.
Did big theatrical productions like Hair, Jesus Christ Superstar.
And he
So,
produced Grease,
oh, there you go. So,
the movie. So
how about that? So he owned the record label that issued all the soundtracks
hmm.
for his artists. So,
I feel like I remember hearing about that when I watched the Bee Gees documentary, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart? I think it talked about that that maybe he was like, we're using like the Bee Gees or something.
yeah. Well, and I was just reading. They said that on one not one judge, someone judged that he was at one time had been the most powerful tycoon in entertainment industry. So
Mm-hmm.
because of the groups he managed and also the control he had, and
Yeah.
he had all the rights to those, songs and so
Mm.
on and so forth. And yeah, because I think I read that this soundtrack until Thriller came out was the best selling album
Yeah.
in the history of music. So,
Yeah. And it's still one of the best selling like movie soundtracks
uh-huh. And
ever.
it's still great. I mean, even if
Yeah.
I think anyway. So,
Mhm. Mhm. No, I enjoy it too. And it's a lot of mainly Bee Gees music. All the like original music is either performed and or written by the Bee Gees.
mhm.
So we get a lot of that throughout and I think it's enjoyable music. Again, I have grown past my dislike for the Bee Gees cuz I'm not forced to listen to them anymore. Now it's more of a treat as opposed to when I was a kid and my dad was just like playing the Bee Gees constantly. It's like, can we listen to anything else?
Well, there was
Um,
a big backlash, initially,
mhm.
with people with disco, and then I forget where it was, some big stadium where they,
I think it
smashed a bunch.
was
Was it
what's the
Chicago?
one? It was in Chicago because there was a
Wrigley
particular
Field?
like radio DJ
Yeah,
that
who it
was
was.
like fomenting the hate towards them. They talk about that also on the Bee Gees documentary about
Oh,
Disco Demolition Night. There's also I will recommend for listeners the podcast You're Wrong About has good episodes. It's a couple episodes I think on Disco Demolition Night because they cover like the history of disco
oh,
and sort of
okay.
where it came from and then how the backlash started and like what that was and also about how like Disco Demolition Night and we've talked about this like it turned into people just like bringing albums they like didn't
Right.
like
It
people are
wasn't
bringing
even
like
disco.
Stevie Wonder and it's like Stevie Wonder did not make disco music, he's just like black and some disco artists are black, like I don't like also I don't know if you don't
I
like
don't.
Stevie Wonder but like it definitely became like a different kind of thing than like just about people not liking disco. um but I don't
But
get it.
I can say that from I remember when the movie came out and the music was playing, there were some friends of mine, my acquaintances and people my age who didn't like this music, who didn't
Mhm.
care for, I guess, for what it brought, or what, or they just didn't, just didn't like it. So, but I,
Mhm.
I like music, and I think that I listened to all kinds of music, and at the time
Yeah.
I enjoyed it, and like I said, all the young ladies liked it. So, you know,
There you go.
that's right. So either,
Obviously worked for Tony Manero. He had
exactly,
girls throwing themselves at him. Oh my
he was
God.
he was the man.
That I was just like, girls, please want better for yourself. There was some straight up desperate. Can I wipe the sweat from your forehead, Tony?
It and
Girl.
and she's I don't know. I hope she's still with us. But she Denny Dixon was. She's been in a couple of other things afterwards, but she's a very she was a very talented comedian and an
Oh,
actress.
yes.
But
She still
yes,
is with us, it seems.
well, that's good. But
Denny
there were
Dillon.
yeah, and what was funny was that really when you looked at, well, we'll get into it when we recap the movie. Tony, other than Tony was a good looking guy and he knew how to dance, wasn't a
Not
whole
much
lot.
else going for
Wasn't a
him.
whole lot going on, It wasn't, so
That's kind of what I appreciated about Stephanie. She was like, there's not much there, Tony.
yeah, and
All the other girls were like, oh my God, Tony. Stephanie was like, I mean, you're interesting, but I wouldn't say you're intelligent.
yeah, and called it like it was, and then
Yeah. He needed to
we're
be knocked down a peg. The other girls were gassing him up too much.
it,
He
yeah.
needed the ego blow a little bit.
Well, and then when we get to that part in the movie, I had some notes about that, about Tony being on the other side of the fence.
Yeah, for sure. Before we start, I will say, so the person who wrote this, Norman Wexler, also wrote Serpico, which
Mm.
didn't he have a picture of the
Al
picture he
Pacino
had of
as
Al Pacino
Serpico.
was from Serpico.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So the person who wrote this movie also wrote Serpico.
There you
This story is also based on, there was a story in New York Magazine
go. Mm-hmm.
in 1976 called The Tribal Rights of the New Saturday Night by a journalist, a British rock journalist named Nick Cohn. And I read that it wasn't actually like a real story. He made it up.
Made it up.
He went one night. He wanted to write about this scene. He went one night to Bay Ridge to 2001 Odyssey, which was like a real disco. And there was like a fight and someone threw up on his pants. But he saw one guy kind of standing there, just looking at chill, just
Uh-huh.
taking in the scene. But he didn't stick around. And then he made up this story based on people he knew back in England, as that guy. So
Got
it
it.
wasn't really
The real.
journalism. It was fiction mixed with some real stuff. But it takes place for real in Bay Ridge. The disco they go to is 2001 Odyssey, which is funny to name a disco after uh that.
The 2001 Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
um,
But yeah, so that's where the story came from.
oh, okay.
But yeah, I thought it was interesting reading that. I was like, oh, this is not real.
Real. But what's funny then when you think about it, it's sort of like he he painted in maybe a kind of a fictional uh scenario, but it became real. I mean,
Yeah.
that's because that's what our Saturday nights became, with everything was modeled on that.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't
Mm-hmm.
go hang out and drink at bars after this movie. What we did was we went to disco clubs,
Yeah.
and we drank, but I'm
Yeah.
just, it
Did they
wasn't like
have
we sat
disco
around.
clubs in West Virginia?
Not until this movie came out. And I honestly can't. I remember that it was like an overnight thing, and then all of a sudden, that anybody that had an empty building or somebody wanted to open up something, they opened up a disco club
They threw up
and
some lights,
threw up some
got
lights,
that
and
light up floor, disco
put it
ball.
that we didn't have the light up floors. We weren't that sophisticated.
That I was, yeah, that's
We
disappointing. I've never seen a light up floor, but I wish that there were more of them
I
because that would be fun.
yeah, we didn't get there, but what people did was, and then you had a DJ,
Mm-hmm.
and that sort of ushered in that era of that too. That all of a sudden that became a vocation, on a
Yes.
DJ, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you know, at a disco place.
Like Beautiful Monty.
Yeah, yeah.
Such a fun name.
Yeah, up until that time, and then like I said, we went from listening to country western music and the Eagles and so on and so forth, and wearing blue jeans and sitting in dive bars to you go out to all of a sudden the women would start dressing up. They wore the dresses
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and we would start dressing better. Yeah, we you know we started cleaning up, you know,
Yeah.
for you know, to go out on a Saturday night. There was and people came up with some of the strangest things. I remember there was one place I went to, and I've told people this story, that on each table was a telefax, and on each table was a place card holder with a little sign, and it had the telephone number of the telephone that you were at.
Mm.
And if you wanted to talk to someone at another table, you dialed that number over there, and if they picked up, then you started talking to them, and or somebody would call your phone. I still remember that, and I can't remember now what the name of the club was, but I do. I'm sorry, it was the telephone booth.
Oh, there
It
you
was
go.
called the telephone booth, and
On brand.
I thought that was a pretty novel idea for back in the day, because we didn't have cell phones, and then
Yeah.
it was noisy, it was loud, and if you saw somebody across the room and it was crowded, rather than like, and the signs, the note with the phone number was way up high above the table,
Mm.
so you could see if even if people were standing, you could see what the phone number to that table was. So
That's cool. That's a novel idea. Someone should
yeah,
bring that back. I think that people would go if someone brought something like
I
that
I
back.
I
I bet
wonder
people
about
would
that.
go.
Yeah, you know, and it was just like regular desk phones, and then but it was like a 3-digit number, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and then you dial it, and you know, that
Yeah.
was fun. So,
I bet people would go for that. Someone should do that now.
but yeah, no, up until the time the movie came out, no, we didn't have disco clubs, and also you then started taking, if you felt like it or had the money, take disco lessons
Mm.
to learn how to dance. You know,
Yeah.
before, you know, there was no rhyme or reason to when we danced. You know, you
Mm-hmm.
you know, not for us anyway. So, but now all of
Yeah.
a sudden there were synchronized moves. You know, there was choreography. There was
Yeah. Oh
there.
yeah. Travolta was busting out the moves
So
for sure. Well, I guess we can get into then the
yeah,
movie.
yeah. The introduction.
Yes. So, well, it opens sort of iconically with Staying Alive is
Mhm.
playing, which I think is a song that everybody knows, at the very least, to like time your compressions when you're doing CPR.
If you take
Um,
if you've taken the lifesaver course, your CPR course.
I it's what I think of it every time. I
Oh,
have to
okay.
renew my CPR thing. So I have to do it for work quarterly. I'm just like, staying alive. And it also reminds me, there's a scene from The Office where they're taking a class because a gentleman, Stanley, has like a heart attack. And so they decide they all need to learn CPR.
Oh.
And they start doing it. And then, but they like get distracted and start dancing instead of, and the woman's like, okay, your person has died. And then Dwight cuts the face off. And anyways, he's like, we have minutes to harvest the organs. It's um if you don't know what I'm talking about, just like Google like off the office CPR and you'll see it. But anyways, in this case, Staying Alive is playing. John Travolta as Tony Manero is strutting down the street, you know, in his outfit. He's got his like sort of wider legged pant. I wouldn't say that they're like a full bell bottom. They're flared.
Flared, as we,
Flare
yeah, we
pants.
called them flared.
The like sort of big open collar shirt, little leather jacket, carrying a bucket of paint, but just bopping down the street. Stops to put a nice new like silky shirt on layaway.
Mm-hmm.
Because he didn't have all the money for it yet.
Guilty.
You know, those shirts are probably expensive.
They were like $20, and that was a lot of money back then. You
Yeah.
know, so you'd put $5 down, and you'd pay, you know, when you got paid,
Mm-hmm.
you'd pay, you know, $5 a week until you got the shirt.
There you go.
Yep.
He actually then goes to his work. He works at like a hardware store, like in the paint department.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked for an advance to buy the shirt to pay for the rest of the shirt, which they deny him. He's mad too because they pay on Mondays instead of Fridays. And they say it's like for his own good because if you get paid on Friday, you blow it all over the weekend. And then you don't have any money. But he's like, you paid on Monday, you have the whole week. I
I
was
thought
gonna
his
buy.
boss gave him great advice too. I think I might put this on a shirt. Don't fuck the future, or the future will fuck you.
Yeah. That is true. That is true.
I like that. So
Yeah. Then he goes home and we get a little glimpse of the Monero home life. So he lives at
mm,
home.
mm,
This all takes place in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, which is very like, I think it would be described perhaps as like an ethnic neighborhood. So it's full of like Italians and like Irish people and uh like the white people who America used to be racist against, basically.
well,
Uh
there's Italians, Irish, and Jewish. So
yeah.
yeah.
All the people that used to have signs in windows that said do not apply. They all live there. So he lives with his parents and his grandma and his little sister. The little sister was cute. And his parents clearly like they seem very strict and like disapproving, not very encouraging, warm,
No,
not
no,
much of
not
anything.
a lot of affection there.
No,
Um,
not at all. But we also get to see his whole like routine of getting ready to go out. Night Fever is playing. He's doing his little Bruce Lee poses. He's blow drying his hair for what seems to be 1,000 years, brushing it and blow drying it just over and over to get just the right like coif.
I'm kind of surprised they didn't show him, because we used to put stuff in our hair in order to get it to
Mm,
stay. You know, I mean,
yeah.
and again, this was back in the day. So, um, but I remember, wanting a round hairbrush,
Mm.
and my dad asked me, why in the hell did I need a round hairbrush?
To get the volume, Dad. Haven't you seen Tony Monero's hair?
That was an interesting time of my life.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
So,
Then he goes down to dinner. This part makes me laugh because he doesn't want to eat dinner because he doesn't want to get sauce on his shirt because it's a new shirt, I guess.
yeah.
And so but his family's like, you're eating dinner with us. And so he has like a full, like, looks like a tablecloth,
I,
like tied around him.
or a sheet? Was it?
Yeah, it's like it's I don't know, it's like a large piece of cloth tied around him as
Yeah.
like a giant bib to cover his entire shirt because he's not risking getting one drop of sauce on the shirt. Clearly, like the older brother is favored. He's a priest. There's a picture
Mhm.
of him on the mantle.
Father
And there's
Frank.
always like Father Frank Jr. Yeah, the mom calls him Father Frank Jr. like the whole time, every time she refers to him. But the family's fighting. He gets hit in the head, and he's like, "Hey, you know what? Why always hit me in the hair? I just spent all this time doing my hair. You always gonna hit me in the hair."
And Dad's out of work, evidently. I don't know if he's on strike or he's laid off. He's not working. He's not been working for a few months.
Yeah, yeah, because he's later they said something about unemployment because when
Mhm.
Tony gets a raise, he's like a jerk about it, and he's like, "Well, this is more than you make on unemployment." So,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
because the mom talks about going to work, and the dad's like, "No, you can't go to work," and it's like, well, then who here is work? Is Tony is working, and that's it, I
Yeah,
guess.
Tony's working and bringing in the money. And something I noticed about the movie, and I don't know if maybe I'm wrong. Did the grandmother ever say any dialogue?
I don't think so.
I don't think she ever spoke, did she?
Because even when she
She
like saw
cried.
Tony with like his like in his underwear, she was just like, oh, she kind of like was just like, oh, she didn't like say any words.
Yeah. So
Interesting. Maybe she
easiest
didn't speak
easiest
English.
acting job in the world.
Yeah,
you know,
just like look.
just look sad, depressed, and angry.
Yeah, occasionally like distressed and shocked.
Yeah. So
But
I
yeah,
can do all that before breakfast.
yeah, exactly. The dysfunctional family, right? Because like the dad hits the mom and Tony hits the dad and the dad hits Tony and like it's everybody's just smacking each other. Like, oh, this is the vibe
Except
is not.
grandma and the little sister, they don't get hit, and they don't
No.
hit. Yeah, they
Yeah.
don't hit. So
Elders and children are safe, but everybody else is fair
yeah.
game, I guess. Seems like a mess. Finally, Tony is done though, and he can leave and he goes out. He gets picked up by his friends. Their names are Bobby, who's like the little nerdy one.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's Joey, Double J,
Jay.
and Gus. So they're all piled into the car. They're messing with him too when they come to pick him up. Like they keep driving past him when he like goes to like open the door, they pull away. He almost shuts his finger in the door and tells him that they almost broke his pussy finger. And I was like, oh, okay. This is the kind of movie we're watching. Cool. Good start.
Gotta
Then
remember
they're
when it was made. Come on. Sorry.
uh then they're in the car driving, they're all drinking and like doing some kind of drugs. I don't know what kind of drugs they do. Uh
Speed. They were doing
speed.
speed, and then
Okay, because they were saying
because
like uppers and downers and
downers and so quaaludes. That's it was
oh
either it
yes.
was ludes and speed. Black beauties. That's what that was the things of choice. Unless you smoke pot, which I was surprised that none of them smoked pot.
Yeah.
In reality, that was a big thing even when I was going to school. But
Yeah.
was smoking pot, but they all
Seems
smoked
less intense
cigarettes.
than Quaaludes.
Well, yeah, it really was. I mean, it and the after effects as well.
Yeah.
So,
My main understanding of Quaaludes is from Wolf of Wall Street.
mm-hmm.
That scene in Wolf of Wall Street is like my mental picture of Quaaludes. So
Okay,
I have no other frame of reference for
no,
Quaaludes.
okay,
Except there was also an episode of Law and Order SVU where like an old dude was like trying to rape people and he used Quaaludes because
Quaaludes.
he was old.
That's you did you took Quaaludes to sort of relax, and you took speed to sort of speed, to
Mm.
ramp up. So it was
Yeah.
different times.
Yeah, they're talking about how good they look and as sharp as you can look without turning into a racial slur or different racial slur.
Sorry, I'm
Um,
not laughing at I'm laughing at the scene. It's
yes. N word or S word are the
mhm,
ones they use.
right.
Which I think is, I don't love to hear it, but I think is accurate for the like the neighborhood, right? I think because when you watch like The Godfather, if you watch like
Hmm.
Goodfellas, sort of like the Italian neighborhood, racist.
Racist.
Just
Yeah.
is what it is.
Yeah, maybe because other people were, they were called slurs, the Italians by other
Yeah,
people.
and I think
So,
it's like what Tony says at the end, like everybody's dumping on each other. Like we
hmm,
get dumped on, we need somebody else to dump on. And
right.
it's so, these
Yeah.
other groups of people are who we're dumping on, like the Puerto Ricans and black people and stuff like that. So
Yep.
then they get to the club, 2001 Odyssey, and clearly Tony is like very popular. The C parts for him.
Hmm.
As when they go with the priest later, he's like, "You guys are like Moses." Uh, but they have a
And
light up dance floor at this club. They have a DJ named Beautiful Monty, which I think is such a silly name. Uh, and this girl Annette comes up to Tony. Annette. She kills me, Annette.
Annette.
She's what a sad person. But she comes up to him and he says something about like, "Oh, you're not my dream girl." Instead, she said like, "I hope you have a nightmare or something." But then they still dance together.
And she's obviously a good dancer,
Yes.
and they do dance well together. So,
Yes. They do a whole routine to Disco
hmm,
Inferno. And it is really good.
yeah,
But then when they're done and she wants to sit with them, he's like, he blows her off.
yeah. It's like
Yes.
he'll dance with her, but that's all. So,
Yes. I will also let the people my age know. Annette is played by the actress Donna Pescow, who I recognized her face and I was like, where do I know this lady from? So I looked her up. She is the mom from Even Stevens. So if you are a 90s, 2000s kid and you watched Even Stevens, the mom, if you want to see John Travolta be mean to her, you can watch Saturday Night Fever.
and
Uh,
I liked her in the movie, and I thought she looked a lot like a girl that I'm sorry, a young woman that I was dating at the time.
mm,
And Donna, and she went on to have her own series for a couple of seasons in 79 and 80 called Angie, where she
mm-hmm.
played an Italian, I think she was a mom, and so on and so forth. But yeah, she did a lot of different things later on.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I always liked her. But and her look sort of epitomized the way that a lot of the young women dressed like when we were going out and so on. She, had the pretty dress and had the nice shoes, and then had
Mm-hmm.
a lot of women wore scarves around
Mm-hmm.
their neck,
Mm-hmm. And
and
she had
then
the sort of like the
the
hair,
very
sort of
coiffed,
like blown back
like the
hair.
wings,
Yeah.
that's the and
Well, it was
the
fair. It was Farrah Fawcett was a thing then,
it
right? It
was,
was like
yeah.
the Farrah, like,
And had
um,
the eye makeup and stuff where
mm-hmm.
it was
She had really thin eyebrows. That's what I kept looking at. It's like her eyebrows are so thin. But I guess
oddly,
perhaps that
oddly
was the look at the time.
it was. I was going to say a lot of women at the time, or a lot of the people that, yeah, there was. I don't know if that was the look in the movies or if that was the look in the
Mm-hmm.
magazines, but there was. I don't remember um, them with like a lot of eyebrow. It was like they
Yeah.
were always like grooming their eyebrows. I mean, like if you had like I was going with the one person, and we would be out like and then all of a sudden she'd be in the car and she'd be like plucking her eyebrows, and it's like, what are you doing? And she's like, I just got and I got to make sure they look right, look good. So anyway,
It's funny. But yeah, so they dance. He kind of blows her off when they get back to the table. Then some other girl comes up like, Tony, can I wipe the sweat off your forehead? It's like, oh my God. Get
you
it
never did
together,
that.
ladies.
You never did that to anyone. You never asked that.
Absolutely not.
I'm being
Absolutely not.
facetious, you know that. So,
I
and don't worry,
know.
I never had anyone come up to me and ask me if they could do that.
Oh my God. I was like, get a life, please. He's gonna take that girl to dance, but then they switch from disco to something else.
A
And
slow dance.
yeah.
And no, he's not
And
having any
Tony
of
is upset. But there's one couple dancing. And he's like, oh, I don't know who that is. And she turns out to be Stephanie, who later becomes like the main lady in the movie. But then they find out there's gonna be a sweepstakes
that.
dance contest. And Annette, the woman he keeps blowing off, is like, hey, Tony, do you want to dance with me in the contest? And, despite it all, they do dance well together, as you mentioned. So he agrees, but he's like, I do not want to date you. And she's like, but like, maybe you'll want to date me. And he's like, I do not want to date you. She's like, she's so desperate and it makes me so sad. And it keeps up. She never stops.
Yeah.
She's determined, if nothing else. Oh, they use Bobby's car
Yeah.
and he wants
Bobby's
to
the
get
one
in the car, but one of the other guys is in the car, like having sex with a woman and won't get out. And he makes them wait until he's finished,
till he's done,
which is quite a scene. They all just are standing outside the car, like waiting for him.
including a couple, including one of the guys has a girl.
Yeah.
So and they're all like watching. It's like
Yeah.
it's
He's going, it's happening. It's like, oh my God.
and then I hate to say it, but it's so, I won't say typical of the time, but it remind when they were coming out of the car, he said, "What did you say your name was again?" And it was like, in all honesty, there were maybe there were hookups like that. You met someone, and
It's a thing. It's a thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it was like you didn't even get to hardly know their names, and it was just like whatever. So
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway,
But yeah, then like, more dancing. He's dancing with two women. Then there's a
mm,
whole line dance to Night Fever that everybody seems to know. And then the next morning, he's waking up looking
pretty
rough.
rough.
Him and his friends go walk around, talk about how poor they are, yell at a gay couple for fun, I
Yeah.
guess. Play some basketball. Yeah, they're talking about sort of the rat race of life and how difficult everything is. But then Tony goes to his job at the paint store and they offer him a raise of $250 and he's so excited that they're like, God, okay, I'll make it more. And he's like, no, like I'm so happy. And they're like, fine, it's gonna be $4. It's like they're so begrudgingly like, oh God, because you're so nice about it, we gotta give you more money, I guess.
Well, I think in a little bit later on, he alludes to it. Like nobody ever really tells him that he's doing a good job, or that
Mm-hmm.
he's valuable, or he's liked, or. And this was maybe the one of the few times that he got some sort of positive reinforcement.
Yeah, that's what I put in my notes. The next scene, he goes home and he's like excited because he got a raise because he's like, as we discussed, like bringing in the money for the family. And he tells his
Hmm.
dad, and his dad's like, "Oh, that's not very much." And he's like, "Well, it's more than you get."
Yeah,
And
his
that's when
dad
he
like just
says, like,
like
everybody here is so rude to me. The like me getting this raise and at the disco are the only places that people tell me that I'm good. You
hmm
certainly have never told me that I'm good.
and and yeah, it's sort of part of the thing with the with his buddies and stuff. A little bit of it was reminded me a little bit of in Goodwill Hunting
Mm-hmm.
when they're
Mm-hmm.
riding around and they're talking about how bleak their lives are and that they're never going to really get out of the city or get out of what they're doing and so on. And then
Yeah.
you know it just sort of brought that up to me where they, how bleak they thought their future must be,
Mm-hmm.
that and then I started to realize that how dark this movie
Yeah.
was. So
Yeah, this is when I'm starting to get like, oh, this is not just like a fun dancing movie.
yeah, that well, and maybe that's the reason it stood the test of time. It's more than just an entertaining or a lighthearted thing.
Yeah.
It's not like Grease.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
Uh,
that's why I was interested because when I was reading about it and it said that John Travolta was nominated for an Oscar for this movie, and I was like, dang, for just a movie about like dancing and disco, and I was like, well, now I get it because
because he
it's
was good, I thought.
he was, but
Mhm.
you know the Oscars love a sad movie,
Oh yeah, yeah, and they like
and this
a
takes a
character that
turn.
that suffers.
Yes, yes,
I thought Donna Pescow was good in this.
yeah. God, what a sad person.
Well, but she came across that sort of desperate and sad and
Yeah.
because when you looked at Tony and you looked at to me, you looked at Tony, he didn't look that much different from all the other guys. It wasn't like
Mm-hmm.
because I got to tell you, there were some guys back in my day that should not have been wearing them pants and should not have been wearing those shirts
The shirt unbuttoned
unbuttoned
way
all the way
down.
down, and God knows I don't know how they fit into some of the pants and stuff, but but anyway, so but certainly you look at her and she was attractive and she danced well, which is I know not a whole lot, but she certainly could have gotten someone else's attention on her own without falling all over Tony. I thought but
Right.
to be
And
that
again, as we said, good looking guy can dance. What else was
yeah
going for him?
yeah, what else are you
Like,
bringing
no
to the table?
offense, but
No, it's yeah. I mean, there's not a whole lot else there.
right, he wasn't like that special. So, like, girl, go to a different club.
Yeah.
But, anyways, he meets with Annette. They're gonna start practicing. Oh my God, she's so she's waiting for him outside. He was like, you could have
Oh,
waited inside. And she was like, well, I wanted to see you come because I like the way you walk. Like,
no, it's like,
God, oh brother.
oh, yeah.
She keeps wanting to date him. He keeps saying no. He says apparently, Tony's theory of women is that they're either nice girls or C words.
Hmm.
You hear the C word a lot in this movie. I haven't heard the C word this much on in any American production. So I feel like it's usually when I watch like British shows, hear it a lot more.
Good point. Yeah. And usually it's
Uh,
guys calling each other that.
yeah, yeah. Or I hear it like if I watch like drag things, like it's a
Well,
compliment
yeah.
then.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Well,
like if somebody says like you look cunt, like that's a
mm,
good thing.
oh, okay.
Here it is not a good
Hmm.
thing.
No, no.
It's
Yeah. You're either one or the other. You can't be. And even she said, why can't I be both?
yeah,
You know,
porque no los dos.
yeah.
You can be both. Meet in the middle, dance all night.
Right.
That's from Beyonce song.
Oh, okay.
Um, so anyways, they're at the studio to practice, and who is there but the new lady from the disco doing some very bad ballet? Like
Bad ballet.
she was not. She was just flopping her leg around. Maybe
I
she was just
know.
stretching, but I was like, that's not ballet, girl. She's wearing a leotard and tights and like ballet shoes, but the what she was doing, she was just flinging legs around. I was like, girl, is that supposed to be a grand battement? Because it does not look good.
I didn't see
It
any classical ballet.
no. She
Not
was
that
just
I'm a
like bending her
judge, but
leg and like
yeah.
flailing it around a little bit. But anyways, um, Tony and Annette practice, and then he's watching this other lady.
Mm-hmm.
And
Stephanie.
Stephanie, it turns out to be Stephanie. I don't know that we knew her name yet,
Oh,
but
but yeah.
he like goes up to her. She's like, "Can you go away?" And
And
they
how
sort of,
creepy was that he went into the room where she was practicing and closed the door? Like today, it would be
right.
like, either she'd shoot him or, she'd, press the alarm bell. But it was like he
Right.
just let himself in and was like just watching her
Yeah.
while she was dancing. And it's like,
Yeah.
you
And
know,
she's like, "Can you go away?" They have a little like kind of back and forth.
yeah, yeah,
Which I think only endears her to him. But she's like, "Leave me alone,
yeah.
you
Well,
weirdo."
I guess to him, she was playing hard to get.
Yes, yes. Well, all the other girls are just throwing themselves at his feet. So maybe
I never
having
thought of that.
someone a little bit of who's a little bit challenging was refreshing to him.
Mm-hmm.
He's got people trying to like wipe the sweat from his brow. Are you kidding me?
Or just watching him walk down the street.
I'd love
Yeah,
to watch you walk. Oh my God, he's so
yeah.
mean to her.
I know, and
She
she
needs friends
just
who are girls. If that was one of
well,
my friends, I'd be like, Annette, pull yourself together.
that was the other thing I didn't notice. Like there wasn't a group. Well, you saw a couple of girls together and so on and so
Mhm.
forth, but not like because when we went,
There would be
was up
groups
there,
of girls.
groups of girls and groups of guys, and it was
Right.
unless you
That's,
went,
I feel like, how it has worked in
yeah,
time immemorial. Like,
exactly, yeah. There was always like a group of girls, and then it was like then if you saw someone that you felt attracted to or whatever you wanted to strike up, then you went over to them. And but it wasn't like one girl, one person. But anyway,
yeah,
so
but that's what always happens. It always happens in movies that men write. I felt that way too about like I don't know if it's like this in the old versions of Star is Born, but like in the Lady Gaga version of A Star is Born, she has no
mhm.
girlfriends. And I'm like, no, this wouldn't have happened if she had girlfriends. But anyways, Tony goes home and all the adults are sitting in the front room just looking like someone died. Uh, Surprise, Father Frank Jr. is here and he's no longer gonna be Father Frank. He's decided to leave the church. And he bunks with Tony and they're talking. And Tony asks him why. It seems like he only became a priest because like their parents wanted him to, is like the vibe that he gives. And Tony always felt like, Father Frank was perfect and he was shit.
Yeah,
And it's like, well, maybe not.
yeah. He said he always thought he was being held up as Frank was the great one or the
Mhm.
good one, and then Tony was crap.
Yep. And it's like maybe not. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
not so much.
Mm-hmm.
Tony goes back to the studio to bother this poor woman, Stephanie. Again, he's turning into Annette. He's her Annette.
And that's where I put down now. He finds out what Annette feels like when he
Mhm.
is pester when she's pestering him, and he's getting treated like he treats Annette. So
Yeah. And speaking of Annette, he's like, oh, hey, Stephanie, do you want to be my partner for this dance contest? I was like, dropped Annette like a bad habit.
I know it was like just like all of a sudden it's like even though although I got to tell you, back in those days, I remember some guys were like that. They would be like make a date with someone, and then someone else would come along, and they would break that commitment. So,
Tisk tisk.
so
Tisk tisk. But he asked her out for coffee. She agrees. She says that she will dance with him, but only dance with him. She's not trying to date him because she's sick of jerk off guys who don't have their shit together and he doesn't have class and stuff like that. She works in Manhattan. I don't know if she worked at like an agency or something.
it sounded like an agency because she talks about all these famous people that come into the
Yeah.
office: Laurence
Yeah.
Olivier, Joe
Yes.
Namath,
Yes.
Paul
David
Anka.
Bowie, but she calls him David Bowie. But yeah, they so she's like regaling him with stories of her job and
Mm-hmm.
she's basically like, that's what I'm going for and like you are not it, so like I'm gonna
Right.
dance with you but that's all.
Yeah.
You got
Oh,
nothing for me.
and she's going to taking night classes in
Yes,
college. Or yeah.
yes, she's taking night classes and she's gonna move to Manhattan too, like she's gonna be
Right.
moving out of Brooklyn. Oh, she says he's nowhere on the way to no place.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, ugh. I
Mm.
mean,
Well,
harsh, but
harsh, but you know,
not
although
wrong.
also we find out she's a little older than he is too.
Yeah. Well, not
Mm,
that much because he says he's 20 and she says she's 20.
Well, but he says he actually though
Oh,
he's
he's almost
19,
20. He's
almost
about to be
20, and I
20.
think she's 21. She said,
No, she says she's 20 because Joe Namath asked her what's it like to be
oh,
21. She said, I don't know because I'm only 20.
okay, all right.
I only know because I just watched that part
No, no,
not that
no,
long ago.
but she seems older, and
Yes.
maybe she seems older because of her life experience.
Yeah.
So
I think so. And she's like, well, she's sort of like read him like a book. She's like, you still live at home. You
mm-hmm,
don't do anything. Like, all you do is go to the club. Like, I'm trying to like do
mm-hmm,
bigger and better things. So
right,
basically, she's like, you are like a little kid. I will dance with you, but that's it.
yeah, the same way he treats Annette.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it does seem like, I mean, it does in that conversation, he does seem to like want something outside of dancing, but he like doesn't really know like where to go, what to
Right,
do.
or even how to express himself about what he, you know, how he feels, or what he wants, or maybe he hasn't even come to terms with, you know, what do I want to do with my life.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Then a few other things happened. So it turns out Tony's friend Gus has been beaten up by a gang of Puerto Ricans called the Sharks. Just kidding. They're called the Barracudas. Close
well,
enough.
close enough. It's still
Also
an
a sea
aquatic
creature,
animal
a dangerous aquatic animal,
with teeth.
dangerous fish. So, but they are hatching plans for revenge. They're
Mm,
casing the joint, figuring out where the Barracudas hang out.
mm-hmm.
Then they go. There's another family dinner. Father Frank's picture is still up on the mantle, but he's not at dinner. And
Mm.
the mom assumes it was something Tony said to him that made him like
Yeah.
leave the church and not be at home. And he's like, "Why is it always like? Why am I in it?
Yeah,
I didn't do
I
anything."
didn't say anything to him. You know,
Right?
actually, and Tony acted like he was disappointed that he left the church because, you
Yeah.
know, because Tony kept asking him, you know, about, what
Why did
was
you
it?
do that? Yeah,
Well, at
like
first he said, "Did you get fired?" Which I thought was funny.
that.
Get fired from being a priest. Could.
Yeah, that's true. And the Father Frank was like, "Oh, everybody thinks I left because of the celibacy thing." And he was like, "It's not that."
Yeah, it wasn't
Um,
that.
but yeah, so she blames. They get into it a little bit. He's like, "You're always like." He yells at the mom like he yelled at the dad earlier, basically.
And then
They just,
he regrets it.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, to be fair, like his parents really are like
Oh,
not very supportive,
no.
encouraging, loving. Like it's like they talk to him the way that Stephanie did. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, "You're nothing. You're going nowhere. Whatever. You support all of us financially, but you're
Yeah.
nothing."
Yeah. You work at a hardware store. You know, you're mixing paint.
Hmm. Yeah,
That's
but
his
it's
big
like
thing.
more than y'all do.
Yeah. Yeah. Bringing in some cash anyway.
Hmm. Tony does tell Annette that he found another dance partner, so at least he does tell her and doesn't just like ghost her. But then he and Stephanie start practicing. They do seem to dance well together. They both know some moves. They're dancing to More Than a Woman.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, they're
The version done by Tavares.
yes, yes. Not the Bee Gees version, though they
No.
wrote it. But yeah, they seem to like be working well together. They're choreographing, doing tango hustle and
Mm-hmm.
all sorts of moves. When they leave, they're talking, having kind of the same conversation. She talks about how she meets people that are interesting and intelligent and like worldly, and so she's like learning all this stuff from people. And he asks her if she thinks that if he's interesting and intelligent, and she says like yes to interesting but no to intelligent, basically.
And
Um,
sort of like dances around it too a little bit,
yeah, she's like
like
interesting, yes, but yeah, I don't know,
you
you
got a
just
way
don't
of
know.
putting things together or
Yeah,
saying things,
yeah,
and you
she
can
doesn't
tell he's
like.
hurt. You can tell he's hurt by that.
Yeah, yeah, he does his stupid the stupid voice he always talked in
Oh, I know.
He's like, oh yeah, yeah, no,
On
and just
Welcome Back, Cotter.
yeah, Stephanie, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. Like that, his like stupid voice. She won't let him walk her all the way home. She's like, she's very clear.
Yeah,
There is a boundary here.
yeah,
Remember when I
you're
said we're just dancing? Yeah, that.
yeah.
We go back to the club. This time Father Frank comes to the club. Uh Also fun music. They're playing If I Can't Have You.
Yeah,
Also a Bee Gees written song.
which I love that song by you, and Yvonne Elliman is the one that sings it. That's one of my
Yes.
favorite
It's a great
songs.
song.
It
It's a
is. It's
great song.
when someone asks me or says something about disco or how if disco is bad or whatever, I said, nope, play this. If I can't
Yeah,
have you,
so good.
it is.
Um
Frank's got a tie on.
that's
You know,
exactly what I was gonna say. He's got like a sweater and like a button-up shirt and tie
yeah.
on. So he's not dressed for the club. Tony could have lent him something.
You would have thought, wouldn't you, that he would have said, "Hey, Frank, buddy, my brother, here,
Right.
this,
Don't you like want him to look like
yeah,
if he's in your crew?
right, that he belongs, or and then because it's obvious that Tony looks up to him, and like as his big brother. So
Yeah.
yeah, I kind
Um
of felt that too. That maybe Tony didn't was a little, I don't know, on the selfish side there, or maybe just
yeah. Or
didn't have
maybe
a
he
lot of
like didn't want to like corrupt him or something.
maybe.
Since his mom already accused him of doing that.
That's true.
But yeah, they come and Frank comments on how like the crowd parts for them like they're Moses parting the Red Sea. What's funny too is that the friend, especially Bobby, just keeps calling him Father Frank, and he's like, "Just call me Frank.
Yeah.
Please just call me Frank." I think at one point he calls him Mr. Monero. He's like, "Call me Frank. Like, just call me Frank." Also at this point, Tony gets propositioned by another woman. What's new? But it's Fran Drescher.
I was good. I wrote that down, and I'd forgotten she was in the movie, but
I was like, is that Fran Drescher?
it's
Because
Fran
she's also
Drescher.
because she's not talking in the like
She
Mr.
doesn't have.
Sheffield.
Uh-huh.
She's not
Yeah.
talking in like the voice that I
And
associate with her.
and she looks different. Well,
Mhm.
she's very young.
Yeah, but
You can
I
tell that.
clocked her face. I was like, "Is
Oh
that Fran
yeah.
Drescher?" And then I had to
Hmm.
look up the cast, and I was like, "Certainly is Fran Drescher."
Hmm.
And again, he's mean to her,
He
and she's all over him. She says, "Are you as good in bed as you are on the dance floor?" And then he's like, "Well, if this is how you dance, you must suck in bed." And it's just like, why are these people
I I
flocking to him?
I don't know.
It's like, is
Although
this where negging came from? Like he's like a pickup artist.
well, I think it is.
This
But
makes me so upset as a woman watching this movie. I'm like, women, please want more for yourselves. Please go talk to Stephanie. She's figured it out.
because Stephanie is the odd one out here. The rest of them, like Denny Dixon's character, and Annette and Connie. She played
Yeah,
Connie, and she wasn't that good of a dancer, by the way.
she wasn't,
So,
but
but
still.
I know, but and then Tony then breaks into his big solo.
Yes.
When
Yes.
when he says forget this, he's not dancing with her. He breaks off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. To You Should Be Dancing.
Mm-hmm,
Another Bee Gees song.
and
Um he does like a full routine. He's doing like the sort of like Russian like
yeah,
up and
the
down.
Cossack thing.
He's
Yeah,
on the floor. I wrote he's like doing floor performance.
mm-hmm.
Everyone's just watching him, and then he eventually like finishes and struts away.
Oh yeah. So
So it's a whole thing. Meanwhile, little Bobby,
poor Bobby.
has gotten his girlfriend Pauline pregnant. Pauline is Catholic. Bless his heart, Bobby is asking Frank if the Pope will give special dispensation for his girlfriend to have an abortion. And Frank is like, I don't think that's gonna happen. He's like, you can ask though, right? And he's like, no.
No. I love Frank's face when he looks at him like because Frank guessed it right away. He says, "Did you get her pregnant?"
Yes, before he even says.
Yeah. So
Because he's like, can you like ask the Pope for like a special, a disposition, dispensation? Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
You could see Frank would be a good clergy person, though. He could do
Oh
the
yeah,
pastoral counseling part of it.
I know. Yeah. So maybe you think Frank maybe had a career in social work.
He could have. He was going to live at a settlement house.
I know. Just saying. Just saying.
Settlement house is started by Jane Addams, one of the founding mothers of social work. Um, He could have. I think he could have done it. He could have been a
Yeah.
nice, like a counselor, like a guidance counselor.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Yeah. So,
Some sort of in like that counseling sort of profession for sure. I could
right.
see that. Bless him. Frank eventually leaves because he's like, this is not my vibe.
Yeah. It's
But
not my
thank you.
scene.
But he is very impressed with Tony's dancing and he compliments him. He was like, "You are like great at dancing. Like that was really cool to watch you dance." Which was nice to hear because again, as we've said, he doesn't get a lot of affection or encouragement or anything, any
No.
positive anything.
Well, I like the way he described it. He says it's exciting. He said you're
Hmm.
excited, not like, like the girls drooling all over him and the guys are going, "Oh, I wish I was like Tony," and stuff. But
Yeah.
he said, yeah, you're exciting. You bring something to the dance floor. You make people, want to watch you.
Yeah. That was really cool. Also, he sort of wanted Stephanie to come to the club so that they could practice at the club
Mm-hmm.
too. And she was like, "Oh yeah, okay, whatever." And she doesn't come.
Yeah.
Then Annette, Annette, Annette. Every time I say her name, I want to say it like that. She pops up. She's like, "Oh, hey,
Mm-hmm.
Tony, remember me? Do you still want to date me?"
Mm-hmm. Now that we're not dancing, now
Yeah.
can we date?
But he's like, "Okay." He says no again. And then she says, "Okay, I'll just hook up with one of your friends." And then all of a sudden,
Mm-hmm.
he's like, "Never mind, come on." So then they go to the car to hook up. She doesn't have any sort of birth control or an IOU.
Sorry. I know. Poor Tony.
What a goof.
Tony's education was sorely lacking.
Yeah, I didn't know they had IUDs in 1977, so that was a good education for me. But
They did. They were extremely crude and extremely painful from listening to women who had them.
not surprising because they're still very painful for people, for some people sometimes.
Well, that's but
I have to imagine then it was worse.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
So
an IOU. So he's like, "Never mind, we're not doing this." Then they all
at least
go.
he didn't say IED.
I'd. They all go to the Verrazano Bridge, and they're like walking on the edge of the bridge and like jumping around and being goofy, and it looks like they're gonna fall. I really thought one of them was gonna fall.
Yeah.
Then they pretend to fall just to freak Annette out, and she's like, "You guys are dumbasses," or whatever she says.
Yeah.
Um, which yeah, that was like, okay, cool. I guess you guys don't like read a book or something. I don't know. Get a hobby. Frank moves out of the house, the family home, to go like stay in a settlement house, go explore his own life. He encourages Tony to do something with his dancing. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
that's like obviously like your thing, so like do something with it. And he leaves him a souvenir, which is his collar.
Yeah.
And Tony
There's
like tries it on as if he's
this
gonna
is
go become a priest. Like, no.
well, and then pretends to hang
Then he
himself
pretends to
with
hang himself with it,
it.
which is
That's good.
probably more accurate.
Probably.
Tony goes to practice with Stephanie again. He's mad she didn't come to the club. She says, "I only said maybe," but he
Mm-hmm.
pretends like he doesn't have the albums, but he does. They still practice. Then all the other guys show up and they all go to White Castle. She's telling them about her glamorous job, about how she met David Bowie and Joe Namath. They called David Bowie the F word,
Yes.
surprisingly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'm sorry. Look at how
I
y'all
think
are
this was
dressed.
his Ziggy Stardust days.
Yeah.
Pretty
Yeah.
sure.
Late 70s.
Yeah,
Probably
pretty
so.
sure.
And I want to be like, you guys are not dressing like substantially different from David. You don't have a lightning bolt on your face, but like outfit wise.
And I will tell you, true, back in the day, living through that was some of the blowback that we got if we wore those clothes.
Mm,
You're dressing like an F word or a Q word,
mm, mm.
you know.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's, but now some of them may not have looked as good as others, but I rocked it.
I'm sure. As they're eating White Castle, the boys finally point out something that has been bothering most of the movie, that Tony Manero does not chew his damn food. Close your mouth. John Travolta also does that as Danny in Grease, just like taking a huge bite and then speaking. It's like, sir, manners. Also, as they're leaving, again, poor Bobby. He asks Stephanie, he's like,
Oh my God.
If I have a friend who like got somebody pregnant and like, would you want to get an abortion or would you want to marry the person? She's like, who would I have to marry? And he's like, you'd have to marry me. And then she said, I'd get an abortion.
Bush.
It's like, oh,
And you can tell he's such a, well, you think he should be a sweet kid,
yeah.
he's just trying to do the right thing, but he says he doesn't want to marry his girlfriend, but everybody says that he has to marry his girlfriend.
Yeah. Yeah. Poor
And
guy.
then
Then
I
she
do remember
leaves.
White Castle. Did you ever read a White Castle?
I did in Kentucky because there
Okay.
aren't any ones in Maryland, or at least there weren't when I was younger.
Well, there
I
were.
only wanted to eat there because of Harold and Kumar go to White
Oh, okay. Go
Castle.
to White Castle.
Yeah, I
Okay.
was unfamiliar with White Castle before then because, like I said, there are none here.
There
At
was
least at the
one
time, there weren't here.
over when the old Lock Raven VA was there as the hospital. There was a
Okay.
White Castle just a block away, and
Aha.
we used to go there for lunch sometimes when I worked there, and then a lot of times though we would go there. I worked on the snow detail when it snowed.
Okay.
We'd have to come in and shovel snow, and then like they were the only places open at 3 o'clock in the morning where you could get something to eat and some hot coffee.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah, I guess there were just none like near where I lived because I think that there was one too on the Eastern Shore also.
I was going to say they were back in the 70s. They were everywhere.
Yeah, but
in the early 80s. So.
In the 2000s when I was trying to go fulfill my Harold and Kumar movie fantasy, they were few and far between. But there was one in Glasgow, Kentucky that was near like the Walmart that we would go to. So my uncle would take me there.
There you go.
So yes, I have had White Castle.
Okay, because I wrote that down. Brought it back good memories. Actually, we'd sit around and eat at White Castle.
Nice. Eat a million of the little tiny burgers.
Oh my God. Oh, 6 of them. No, easy. So, and the coffee was always good. It was never, but that's, I don't know if they poured it out or whatever, but it was never like old or burnt tasting. So yeah, it was good coffee. So
nice. Well, yeah, they all separate. Bobby likes Stephanie, but the rest of Tony's friends think she's a snotty bitch, which is not surprising to me. But Tony's like, oh, you just got to get to know her and blah, blah, blah. He hasn't realized yet that his friends suck. But he gets there. Then Tony's going to help her move to Manhattan. And he goes into his work and he's like, I need the afternoon off. And they're like, you're fired if you take it. And he's like, okay, well, I'm taking it. He borrows Bobby's car to help her move stuff. And this is clearly when Bobby's like whatever's happening is happening.
Yeah. He's getting pretty antsy.
Yeah. So he's like, my girlfriend, I'm trying to see if my girlfriend will have an abortion, but she's saying she doesn't want an abortion. So I think I'm gonna have to marry her. And he's like, will you call me later? And Tony's like, yeah, for sure. I'm gonna call you later. Also, Bobby and his little platform heels. Clicking down the street. But Tony's like, yeah, I'm gonna call you later. He does not call him later.
No. Tony's very self-centered.
He is. Poor Bobby. But he goes and helps Stephanie move. But then when they get to the place she's moving into, which is very nice, first of all, that was my first clue. I was like, this is nicer than she can afford. It's got multiple floors. There's a guy there named like Jay or something like that.
I think it was Jay, yeah.
This like older man who walks up to her and kisses her on the lips. And Tony is like, and I, who the hell is this?
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, did you read the book I told you to read? But he's like leaving. Yeah. I was like, what is happening?
Well, she goes, oh, I thought you'd be gone.
Yeah.
I didn't think you'd still be here.
Yeah. So it seemed like she was like his mistress, basically. But he would like help her. He's like also helping her like be a little more sophisticated.
Recommending books, I guess, trying to, better herself. But
yeah, because she just kept saying, like, when her and Tony were talking about it and they were driving back, she's like, he helps me. But she was clearly like embarrassed about it and like sad. Because I think, she does know she's sort of like being used a little bit in this situation, but she's trying to like, if this is a way I can kind of get a hand up sort of thing.
Right. But I wrote down too, I wrote also, I thought in a way, and she was sort of doing the same thing to Tony. She was kind of using Tony,
Yeah.
to help her move and stuff.
Hmm.
Because he said to her, he goes, "Oh, I got fired because of you, because of this."
Hmm.
Oh, well, and then she wasn't like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," or gee, that shouldn't have done it. It was like, "Oh,
She was like,
I got the whole day off from work."
yeah, my
Wasn't a
work
big,
gave me off.
yeah. So it was like, whatever, and
Yeah, yeah. But Tony's actually like nice to her about it. At first he's like, what the hell was this?
mm-hmm.
Which I think is a reasonable question because I also had the same. I was like, girl, what who is this? Who is
Sugar
this like old
daddy,
man just kissing you on the mouth out of nowhere?
yeah.
But then he's like nice to her and comforts her and he takes her to see the Verrazano Bridge and tells her all the facts about the bridge. Many, many bridge facts.
Yeah, I learned
Uh
a lot about the Verrazano Bridge, that of things I didn't know.
Certainly
Like,
did. I want to
yeah,
know if there's really a guy buried in the concrete.
I
That
didn't
feels like an
bother.
urban legend.
Well, it might be something we have to check up on.
I
So
know. This is like the murder
I
from
know,
Paris is Burning.
exactly. So I just was thinking the same thing.
It's
It's
a rumor, but there
it's a
definitely are
rumor,
people who died when they constructed it.
but you got to figure something like that big of a construction
Yeah.
project back in the when it was built in the 20s, early 20s, maybe.
It was built in 1959.
Oh, I was a lot
So it
later than I
wasn't,
thought it was.
yeah.
So
So it wasn't
okay,
that old. Maybe that's
yeah.
why he was so into it because he was
Oh,
like a
could
little
be.
kid when they
Yeah.
built it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I don't know, TBD. We gotta see if there's
All right.
really
If
people in the concrete.
if
If
any of our
anyone
listeners
knows.
out there, yeah, please let us know. Keep us posted.
Yeah, it looks like they were planning something since the 20s, but they actually built this in the 50s.
Oh, okay.
They were gonna make a tunnel at
Oh,
first.
oh, okay.
But anyways, he tells her all the bridge facts, which is very nice. He goes to meet Stephanie for practice in the studio, and Stephanie is dancing with the studio owner, Pete, who, as we have seen, we saw him earlier, and he said like 65%, which means he's slept with like 65% of the women who like come in there. So he's nasty. He's
Yeah,
skeezy.
and Pete looks like most of the guys that I knew back in West Virginia who, like the ones a little bit older than us in college
Mm-hmm.
who were trying to embrace the disco thing, the receding hairline and
Mm.
stuff.
Trying to embrace the disco thing and the younger girls.
And the younger girls, because oh yeah, but the dressing the part and so on. And I
Yeah,
guess
little.
he owned the dance studio, and
Yeah,
Pete did anyway.
which certainly it seems like that was the way that he got women was because
Mm-hmm.
he owned the dance studio. But she was just dancing with him. But like Tony is like
Oh,
very
he was
upset and like
freaking
disgusted.
out.
And she's like, "Oh my God, like chill. I was just dancing with him." And
Right,
he's like trying to get with all the women here. He's trying to just up his numbers. And she's like, "Okay, but I wasn't gonna do that." Like,
right. Well, to her, to him, I guess Stephanie is she's either the good girl or the C word, and then
yeah.
I guess if she's dancing with Pete, she's the C word.
Mm-hmm. These guys so immature and insecure.
We all were back then. So
Oh, well. Uh,
I was
back then,
20. I was 20.
back then, still are. Not you. I
No, well,
meant generally. Um,
I have my moments.
and we all have our moments. It's yeah. But anyways, Tony is storming out
Mm-hmm.
in a huff, and who should be there but Annette? God, Annette, get a life. Like
I can't figure out how she knows where he is all the time. It's not like she
she
can
just
track him on
pops
his
up.
cell phone. I know it's like everywhere he goes, she's there.
She's like a
I think she's
stalker.
a stalker. Yeah.
Yeah. But she shows up and she's ready for him because she's got a handful of condoms.
Oh, and doesn't that just light Tony's day up?
And he just blows right by. He's like, no,
Nope.
no. He says, oh, Jesus. And he walks away. And then it's time for the boys to get revenge on the barracudas. The not sharks, the barracudas.
Right.
So they're driving around in Bobby's car. And one of them's got a knife. It's like, okay, they're gonna go try to beat him up. They're trying to case the joint, see how many people are in there. And then Joey takes control of the wheel and the gas pedal
Mm-hmm.
and just drives the car into the building.
Well, it's like through a garage door.
Yeah,
it's like
through like a garage door.
Yeah, so because and
Yeah.
I thought at first Bobby's car wasn't going to make it through the garage door.
Yeah.
So
It does make it. There's definitely some damage, but it does make it. But
yeah,
then they're fighting the people that are there. Not well.
no, it looks like they're
John
getting their
Travolta is
asses
getting the
kicked.
shit beat out of him by a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're not doing good. Some dude tries to, Bobby's still in the car. Some guy tries to choke Bobby out, and he's like, let me get out of here. And he reverses and drives down the street. And the other three guys finally, they get to a point where they're not on the ground being beaten up. And they leave. They throw a few punches, but I would be hard pressed to say that they won, though they presented as they did.
Yeah.
They're mad. They're like, "Where's Bobby?" And Bobby comes back, and they're like, "Where the hell were you?" And he's like, "Oh, I was just driving around."
Yeah, I was looking for you. Where were you? It's like,
Then they go visit Gus in the hospital to let him know that they've beat up the people who beat him up. And then he says, "You know what? I'm 100% sure that it was them that beat me up." And they're like, "Are you effing kidding me?
exactly.
That we just went to go beat these people up, got the crap beat out of us, and you don't even know if it
And
was
they
them
look
that
it
beat you
too.
up?"
Yeah.
They are looking rough. Bruises, cuts, little band-aids all over their face.
Mm-hmm.
Mess. John Travolta, Tony's like, "I want to break your broken leg."
Yeah. Well, and then they kind of pick on Bobby though, because they said
Yes.
everybody except Bobby. You know, we
Mhm.
all got our butts kicked except Bobby, and then
Yeah.
insinuating that Bobby's a coward.
Yeah. And you can tell Bobby is like getting upset. Especially,
Yeah.
it's Double J, not Joey, that took the wheel. Double J.
Oh,
He's the one. I
right.
think he's the worst one. I find him the most repulsive behavior
he's
wise.
obnoxious. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
He's the
yeah.
worst. But yeah, you can tell it's getting to Bobby. And then it's time for the dance contest.
Where we
And
see Tony.
The iconic outfit,
Yep.
I think.
Yep.
The white leisure
three-piece suit
with the black shirt,
Yep.
blouse. They are a little more like a blouse.
They are.
But,
well, if you looked at the sleeves, yeah, they're like they're not.
Oh yeah, they're not like straight. They have the
exactly.
They're bloused.
Yeah, yeah.
That is what you call if you were sewing it. It's like a bloused sleeve.
Exactly.
So he shows up in the outfit. Stephanie is there to be his partner, even though the last time they saw each other, he was kind of a dick to her.
Yeah.
But she's committed to the partnership. Unlike Tony, she knows how to keep her word.
There you go.
When she signs up to be someone's partner.
Mm-hmm.
She's in a nice little flowy one shoulder situation, which I do think feels like that sort of like layered dress does feel pretty emblematic of the time.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
So there's a black couple dancing at first, and the black woman is wearing a jumpsuit, which I really love. It's like she's wearing like a gold jumpsuit with the sort of like genie pants, like ankles, the like sort of again like bloused and then tight around the ankle.
And that was a look too. That was a thing.
Love it. This is why I think that like there's part of me that's like I should have come of age in the 70s because I have big curly hair. It would have been a real hit. I love jumpsuits. I like a wide leg pant.
Oh, you'd have rocked it. So
like I think the fashion would have been cool. And also there was, other like cool social movements going on. So but alas, I was born in 1990. So here I am. I just do my best to look cool every day. The black couple finishes, and then Stephanie and Tony are up. Meanwhile, Tony's friends are giving Annette like Quaaludes or speed or whatever. It seems like Quaaludes because she's old. She seems a little more down than up.
Well,
but they're giving her drinks and drugs.
She
asks for. Yeah, she does ask for it. They're not drugging her, but they're supplying her.
Right. Well, it's Joey, isn't it? Joey's the
one Joey
is
giving her. Yeah. But yeah, Stephanie and Tony do their dance to More Than a Woman. They're like staring deep into each other's eyes.
Oh, this is the moment. Yeah, this
is the romance. They kiss. Not even at the climactic moment of the dance. There's still more dancing.
Oh no, yeah.
They kiss. It's like, oh, you're having a moment. This is we are the only two people in this room kind of vibe is happening. But they do well. I think it's like good. It's a little slow. It looked more impressive when they were practicing it, and then they did it, and I was like, okay, I feel like I could do that. I don't know. It
Well,
didn't feel like crazy. Like the other couples did like tricks, and
well,
they didn't feel like they did tricks.
no, they were
Like
doing
compared to what
variations of the
even what
tango.
John
And
Travolta and Annette were doing before did feel like a little
hmm
more.
hmm
John Travolta's little solo moment earlier in the movie felt like a little
yeah.
more. So this was I was like, oh okay. It felt a little anticlimactic to me. I'm just obviously the point of it was like the romance of it and not so much like the steps.
Well, and I'm only saying this because of taking dance lessons and then knowing, but a lot of their stuff in that routine was based on a traditional tango and some waltz moves.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
pretzel where they do the thing, the crossover and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and then also they did some hesitation steps, and then the butterflies where they sort
Mm-hmm.
of turn their backs to each other, and that's all
Mm-hmm.
part of like traditional dance moves.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Yes. Which did
uh,
seem like was her vibe also, like from
yeah,
earlier in the movie when you first see her dancing to like the slower music.
yeah, she might have been
Um,
trained as a classical dancer.
yeah, even though her ballet was terrible. Then there's a Puerto Rican couple that comes up. They are faced with booze and slurs,
hmm
but they're having fun. They're living
Oh yeah,
and they're doing
and
great.
they're fabulous, and
And Tony's like, they're really fucking good.
mm,
Like his friends are like, no, you were better, you were better. And he's like, no, like they're really good.
right, yeah.
Then it's time for the awards. There's a third place couple who are just a couple who honestly looking at them, I was like, they don't look like they would be good at dancing, but
Well,
okay.
especially the guy, he looked
He
like a
looked like the
nerd.
nerdiest
I
nerd in
know,
the
like,
world.
well,
Like
he was probably the guy that spent all of his time practicing his disco moves. So,
maybe he was just at home in front of the mirror, like
exactly, yeah. So it's
dancing disco, all of this at
disco,
home.
disco duck. So,
The Puerto Ricans get second. People boo them again because racist. And Tony and Stephanie get first, but he's like, we should not have gotten first.
yeah.
And she's like, chill, we got first.
Yeah.
Stephanie's like, oh, we won. It's
hmm
good. But Tony is not happy about it. And you can see that he's very like, this is like building
Yeah.
in him. He's mad because he's like, the only reason they didn't get first is because they're Puerto Rican.
Right.
That's ridiculous. So he takes the trophy and the money that him and Stephanie won, and he's like, "Hey, excuse me, this is for you," and gives it to the Puerto Ricans and storms out. And he's mad. He's like, "My friends are assholes, and they're just trying to dump on people, and everybody's my dad dumps on my mom, and my mom dumps on me, and like we dump on the Puerto Ricans, and the Puerto Ricans dump on us. We all dump on like black people, and everybody." He was just talking about like everybody just like dumping their stuff on each other, and he's like tired of it.
hmm
And then him and Stephanie get in the car and he tries to like hook up with her. And she's like, no. He gets a little aggressive.
Yeah.
And she is again like, no, and pushes him off and she storms away. But then his friends come dragging along drunk Annette. And they're like, oh, she's gonna have sex with all of us.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, this is where we're in a dark turn.
Yeah.
The darkest turn of the movie. When this was happening, I was like, I'm sorry, I thought this was about a dance contest, this movie. And it is
No,
not.
no.
Tony tries to stop them. He tries to get them to like let Annette go. And they sort of fight back. And then he just ends up getting in the car with them and he's just sitting in the front seat staring straight ahead as like they're driving around. And like first like Joey is in the back having sex with her, which like seems fine, but then like she starts crying. And then the other guy gets in the back and he keeps going even though she is openly crying
Saying, yeah.
and saying no and
No.
stop. So he like fully like rapes her. The other guys are just sitting in the front. They go to the bridge to do their normal dumb stuff.
Yeah. They're dangling or bridge daring or whatever.
Yeah. And then but this time Bobby gets out. Usually Bobby stays in the car. But Bobby gets out and he's being a little extra reckless. And they're all concerned. Tony's like, Bobby, like get down from there. Like you're gonna hurt yourself. Like stop. Get down. And so Tony's kind of coming one way to try to get Bobby. Double J is coming the other way to try to get him because they're like, okay, something is off.
Right.
And he's like, you didn't call me, Tony. You didn't call me. And he's like really upset. He seems like sort of like frantic. Then he's like, I didn't want to fuck up. I didn't want to fuck up. And he falls into the water.
Which is
and
a
it's
long
like
way down.
A long way down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, before before Tony gets out to like go after Bobby, I will say he was also very mean to Annette for someone who just got sexually assaulted.
Oh, yeah, I know.
He calls her
Hey,
the C word, and he was
C
like,
word.
"Why would you do this?"
Yeah, he goes, "Are you happy now?" It's like,
Yeah. And it's like,
like,
I guess he's saying that because she was like so desperate, she was like asking for it, but it's like she actually was very explicitly saying, "No, I do
no,
not
and
want to do this." And
right.
your friend
Mm-hmm.
still,
You're running, buddy.
yeah. So like, I was like, "Why are you being mean to her? Be mean to your friend."
Yeah.
But anyways, now they've raped someone. Bobby is dead.
Yeah.
The police come, and the police even say like, "Oh, we're not going to find anything today." So they can't even find his body
Body. Yeah. It's late at
in the
night.
water, and
Mhm.
presumably it just happened.
Right.
They can't find him already. So everybody, they're all packing up to leave. They're all getting in the car to leave. Well, they're taking his car. The guy is dead. Which I was like, this is weird.
I know.
You should give this car back to his family.
Did you get the feeling Joey though kind of got protective towards Annette? I thought at that point he had his
Yeah.
arm around her, even when like when Bobby fell and stuff, and it was
Mm-hmm.
like,
And because she was like screaming, she was like
oh
freaking
well,
out and screaming.
yes,
Yeah.
and but it was at this point it just seemed like he was maybe being a little more gallant, or however you want to put it, but
Yeah.
trying to,
A little bit of, there was some care there, it
yeah,
seemed.
yeah, some, yeah,
Yeah.
trying to reassure her, comfort her in some way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But yeah, they all are loading into the car, and Tony just keeps walking.
yeah,
They like call
just
for him, and he does not turn around. He is just walking. And then you see him, he gets on the subway, he's just going train to train all night. And then in the morning, he goes to Stephanie's.
by the way, did you think it was kind of odd that he was on the subway all night? There wasn't a single soul on the subway
I
in New
did.
York City
I was like, New York City?
on a Saturday night. It was
Yeah.
like, and like nobody was there to either harass him, or there were no drunks sleeping off, because every other
Right.
movie you see, on a subway on Saturday night in New York City, it's full of drunks or drug addicts or
Mm-hmm.
people trying to kill you.
Right. Or like
So,
other people who don't have anywhere to go and are riding the train all night.
right, or who
Uh
maybe work,
yeah.
and yeah. So, but anyway, I just thought that was
Yeah,
kind of
I thought
odd
that
too.
was
So,
strange, but I guess for the mood, it needed to be empty.
yeah, yeah.
Also again, this is time period thing, but like smoking on the subway, like God, that would be a
Oh,
nightmare.
I wrote that, and we smoked everywhere, and I wrote that down. We smoked everywhere. We did. I
Yeah.
mean, even like in the White Castle, and then when he was in the dance studio. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
there wasn't any place really that I can think of back then that you really couldn't smoke, and especially in clubs and stuff. I mean, that was just taken for granted. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
restaurants, yeah,
Oh
it was
yeah.
just, yeah, everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, there was still like smoking or non in
No,
restaurants.
there was no non-smoking
Yeah.
whatsoever. Yeah, if you didn't like cigarette smoke, you were out of luck. So
Yeah.
but anyway,
But yeah, so she comes, he in the morning shows up to Stephanie's, knocking on her door. He wants to talk to her. She does let him in, and she does call him a rapist also.
mm-hmm,
She calls it like she sees it.
yep,
Um, and he's again kind of unloading. He doesn't want to go back to Brooklyn. He says they're all assholes. He's fed up with it. He wants to do what she did. He wants to move to get a job, get an apartment in Manhattan. And she's like,
mm-hmm,
"Well, what are you gonna do?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know. I'm gonna figure it out." Oh, and I forgot a piece. So when he was like trying to hook up with her and she was pushing him away, she told him that she was using him. She had like no affection for him at all. She doesn't like him. She was just using him to try to like kind of work on her game, basically.
right,
She wanted nothing to do with him. So when he comes to see her the next morning, she does apologize for that and says that wasn't true. Like she does care about him. He was very supportive. Like she felt admired and respected by him and stuff like that. So that is nice. And basically he's like, if I'm gonna move to Manhattan, can we see each other? She's like, listen, I still don't want to date you. But he's like, no, can we just be friends? And they
mm-hmm,
agree that they're gonna be friends. And
yeah,
then they hug, and then it plays or no, when he's on the train, they're playing How Deep Is Your Love?
yeah. I was going.
I think
Oh,
that's my favorite. I really like that song.
do you?
Hmm.
I think mine is probably "Staying Alive."
Mm.
From the album, anyway.
Yeah.
Although my favorite song is "If I Can't Have You."
Yeah.
I just really, really, really like that song. So But I do
I
I
think
like.
I've heard there's a lot of good covers of How Deep Is Your Love too.
Oh, that
That I've
that I
heard
don't know.
before.
So,
I think I forget who I heard sing it, but I heard someone sing it and it was like a good. It might have been maybe it was on The Voice, but someone did a good cover because the
oh, okay,
harmonies and stuff are good.
yeah.
And
Well, it's a good song. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
um, I kept thinking Destiny Child, but Destiny Child covered Emotions.
okay.
Just emotion taking me
I do
over.
like You Should Be Dancing too.
Hmm.
Should be dancing. I mean, that was all good.
But yeah,
But
that's the movie. They're gonna be friends, which I appreciate as an ending.
well,
That it
and I
we
was
don't
gonna
have to have like the romance.
exactly. It doesn't have to be, and that's what I'd put down too. That because it was rare, and maybe it still is rare
I think so.
that either your friend that you can be friends without being
Hmm.
romantically
Yeah.
involved.
And she even does say that. She's like, "Do you think you can be friends with a
Gir-
girl?" And he's like, "I don't know."
well, and I think that was probably that was kind of a new thing back then. It was like
Yeah.
you either didn't like the girl, like you weren't
Okay.
interested in them romantically, or
Yeah.
you liked them, but you liked them romantically. There was no like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yes.
And it's
Certainly the pack Tony was rolling with did not necessarily see women as like full human people.
no,
So
no,
the
no,
idea of
no,
being
no.
friends with someone you don't see as a full human person is,
Right.
not necessarily going to happen. So, but I really appreciated that as an ending. That it was just
Um,
like, hey, you know what? We like care about each other. Like we've been through this. Like, let's be
yeah,
friends.
yeah. And maybe they did, sort of have a moment or whatever, but maybe it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And that's fine though to move on from that.
Yeah. Or it's like we had a moment, but like we both have a lot of stuff going
Stuff,
on.
yeah, yeah, that maybe we're not in the best place right now to
Yeah. We
even
got some
even
things to work through.
yeah, like Tony, you got to figure out what you're going to do for a job.
Very that. Yeah.
So
She,
yeah,
cause she said, she's like, I'm not trying to be with anybody like that's not
yeah,
like
doesn't have their
going
shit
anywhere.
together. Yeah,
And
uh,
maybe one day he'll have shit together and then she'll feel differently. But at that
well,
moment,
for
no.
those of you who don't know, there's a sequel to this movie
Yes. Called Staying Alive.
called Staying Alive. So um,
I don't know what happens in the sequel. I just read that it was a lot of people like went and watched. It was a box office success, but the critics did not like it.
no, it wasn't nearly as good. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, they rarely are. Sometimes they
yeah,
are. Not
yeah.
always
So
though.
there was some moments, but it didn't have the moments of this. So and this was to me, it was almost like a coming of age movie for Tony. It was like
Hmm.
he went from the kind of naive, just out of high school maybe or whatever, and just starting to figure out what he wanted to do in his life, and all of a sudden you got to start having adult ideas. This
Yeah.
is, what am I going to do for the next 20 years, not for the next 2 months or not for the
Yeah.
next year. Yeah, and then
Right. And this idea of like this place that I'm from, like this place and these people, like this is not it. This is
yeah.
not where I want to be.
Well, so part of this movie, the other reason, one of the other reasons I picked this movie too, and I was going to say, so it wasn't long after this, a couple of years after this, that I decided to leave West Virginia
Mhm.
with the encouragement of my father. And he's the one that told me he said, "There's nothing here for you."
Mhm.
But that it was sort of felt like that in this movie. It was like
Yeah.
Tony had to make that decision, and then I was to that point. I think in my life at that time, it was like, what am I going to do? Where
Mhm.
am I going to go? It was a very personal movie for me. Like I said, we were about the same age, or supposed to be around the same age. In the same, even though it was in New York, I was in West Virginia, but it was the same thoughts or the same feelings. Where am I going with my life, or what am I going to do with my life?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
things around you that sort of had been the same were all starting to change. People that you knew in high school were leaving or getting married, or that was the biggest thing. A lot of people that I knew at that point, they were getting married. So,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm. Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
but anyway,
Yeah. I appreciate, and like it seemed like for Tony, he was like, this is like stupid. Like
yeah,
I can't do anything right in my family. Like my friends were like being like racist towards these Puerto Rican people to the point that like this dude can't even tell me who beat him up, and I'm beating up random gangs of Puerto Ricans for no reason.
Right. Put myself out there,
Right. And
and
it's
he
like
wasn't a good friend to Bobby because,
he
you
wasn't a
know,
good friend to Bobby. The other people weren't good friends either. Like, and it also seemed like he didn't really drink and like do drugs the way that they did. So it was like already like he wasn't really into
no,
all
that
of the stuff
although
that
he
they
liked
were
his
doing.
7 and 7.
Yeah, he did drink, but he didn't like do any of the drugs or whatever. Also, speaking of that bar, can we talk about that one stripping woman
I wrote
standing on the
down
bar?
I, we never I never found a place that had disco club on one side and a strip bar on a strip club on the other side.
But it
So
was just the one lady,
I,
that
I
one barefoot woman standing at
so
the end of the bar,
and I don't know.
just like swaying.
I'm not judging you. So I'm guessing you've never been to any of the strip bars down on the block.
No, I have not.
So anyway, so when I first moved to Maryland, that was a big thing. And then you had to go down on the block, and that side of the house is what they look like.
Interesting. I
Yes.
listen, if I am gonna go to a strip joint, I want athleticism. I want acrobatics.
Oh,
It's got to
but
be like a pole and things happening. That's
that
what I'm looking
might
for.
that
I'm looking
might
for the movie
happen now.
Hustlers. I'm looking for the movie Hustlers. If you've seen people who've seen Jennifer Lopez's routine to Fiona Apple in Hustlers, that's what I'm looking for.
Okay, that wasn't on the agenda or
I'm
on
looking
the.
for or for men, it's Magic Mike. I've seen like male strippers in real life. It was real letdown. Magic Mike set an unrealistic bar.
Oh,
Can I
okay.
say?
So,
Um,
yeah, that's most of what the strippers looked like and acted like in the bars in downtown
yeah.
Baltimore. When I moved to Baltimore in 1980, 81.
Interesting. Okay. So perhaps
Yeah,
that was the era, but I was
except
just like,
they
the,
maybe weren't as attractive as that stripper.
it's like this one lady just taking off her
Hmm.
bikini top and swaying
And
uh
that's pretty much what it was.
at the end
So,
of the bar. I was like, okay, girl,
and
whatever you're
then
doing.
and I was what wasn't odd is what I found it odd when I went to the bars down on the block at the time is that a lot of the bartenders were women,
Hmm.
which I thought that was kind of odd, but because I would have thought they might have objected to being working in a place where women took their clothes off, to entertain men, but nope. And I found out why, because men tipped women bartenders better
Hmm.
the more
That
they
makes
drank.
sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I said
That
something
makes
to
sense.
somebody one time and they said, "Oh, they get better tips than men do, and
Hmm.
they bring in more business."
Hmm.
So anyway,
That makes sense. That makes sense. Well,
but yeah,
yeah. Good.
that
I was
was
just like,
I know, but to have like to go around to go to the bar to get something to drink where there's a stripper,
yeah,
and then
strip club plus disco.
yeah,
It was a
exactly.
full
I mean
service
that
establishment.
exactly. The only thing else they needed was a tattoo parlor, and
Right.
then and maybe
If only.
a clothing outlet, but
Could have covered all the vices, I
all
guess.
the
Need some like poker or something
oh, there you
happening.
go. Yeah, some.
But yeah, I this was a more like dark and
Hmm.
profound movie than I expected it to be. Like I said, I think because it's like similar era John Travolta to Grease and it's about dancing, I was like, okay, it's gonna be like Grease. And I'm like, this is not like Grease at all. Um
Yeah, I didn't recall, how dark it did get towards the end, but I, and as I watched it though, I still remembered everything that I liked about the movie, and then also why it was such an important movie to me,
yeah.
at this time in my life. So
Yeah.
made a big impression, just on the way that we interacted with each other, from then on socially,
Hmm.
how you how the dating world was. It
Hmm.
changed almost overnight, especially in our place, and then
Hmm.
and then I will say that I think in my remembrances of it, it gave the women, the girls, maybe a little bit more power
Hmm.
because then they became a little more selective
Hmm.
about who they went out with or how they based that selection on.
Yeah.
So, but anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I mean, like I said, it was not like uplifting as I expected it to be, but I think I enjoyed where it ended,
Mhm.
and I think that it was. I think John Travolta was good.
He
It's nice to see
was.
him not being a total doofus, Danny Zuko.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was different than what I expected, but not in a bad way.
Yeah. And I
Just
think all the characters were good in the fact that the way they made me feel that
mhm.
they did a good job portraying the people they were supposed to
Yeah,
portray.
they felt like true and real.
Authentic, yeah.
Yeah, not like good, not like good in like I like them, but
Right, but
like
they did
good
their
in
job well. Yeah.
yes, yes. Like being
It's
a full character, telling the story, all of that
right.
that
So,
kind of stuff. Yeah.
and just a couple of tidbits about the characters. So the lady that at the beginning of the movie that's waiting on John Travolta to deliver the can of paint,
Hmm.
that's his real mother.
Oh.
And then the girl he bought the pizza from, that was his sister.
Oh, and his
His
sister
real
is also in Greece too, right? Like
yeah.
we talked
So
about that.
yeah. So but anyway. So yeah. So I guess John kept it all in the family. So
Well,
at
that's
least
good. Get your people cameos.
yeah. So but
Well, that's
I'm glad you enjoyed the movie. So
mhm.
and if nothing else, for the soundtrack or for the
Yes. I
music,
think
it
like
was
the
fine.
looks and the soundtrack, I think
Hmm.
are sort of my favorite bits of it. And then I will say also the character of Stephanie I appreciate because I just like that she was like all the other women were so desperate. Um and she was just like, "No, I got plans. I got places
Hmm.
to go." I just saw Joe Namath at work today like you don't impress me.
Right.
I had a conversation with Joe Namath. He wanted
Well,
to
and
he wanted to sit and have coffee with
Lawrence
me.
Olivier,
Yeah, I had a conversation
and
with Laurence
they
Olivier,
didn't
Paul
know who that
Anka.
was. They didn't know who he was.
Exactly.
Yeah, come
It's like
on.
I have conversations with like famous like people doing things like
Hmm.
you're good at dancing, but like that's you're not doing anything for me. I appreciated that about her. So she was my favorite. Annette made me sad and Bobby made me sad in different ways.
Well, no, and I
Well,
think
I guess in a
maybe
similar way.
Stephanie was maybe the harbinger of what women would do with their lives and their careers and so on and so forth, and
Yeah.
that was the future where not Stephanie, Annette and um, Bobby, that was the sort of the past. It was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I'll be the
Yeah.
subservient one. I'll be the one that dotes on you or whatever. That's
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
And I will say, I think that like Stephanie, even though she's a little mean to him sometimes, like she did present like an alternative for Tony. Like, oh, okay, I don't have to like be in Bay Ridge with these people
right,
doing this all the
yeah,
time. Like I can go, like she said she's gonna go and she went. So like
yeah.
I can also do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that she was like sort of an inspiration for him, even if she did insult him a little bit. But he insulted Annette all the time, so he needed it.
And
He needed to be brought down a peg.
maybe that was part of the culture too, because it was sort of like that's how they sort of talk to each other.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was never like, oh, you're such a great guy. It's like, you're not bad for a doofus,
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah. This sort
you
of
know,
like a Brooklyn Italian
yeah,
thing.
you're not
Yeah,
as
yeah,
stupid as you look. So
yeah, yeah. But yeah, I think that like, had he not like met her and heard like what she has going on, I don't know that he would have gotten to the point that he did at the end of the
no,
movie, where
oh, I
he was like,
agree.
"I'm over this. I'm gonna go."
I kind of got the feeling, yeah, if that hadn't happened, maybe the alternative reality for him, he probably would have married Annette, maybe,
Hmm.
or gotten her pregnant and then had to marry her, and
And
then
then
they
been like
divorced.
his parents and hated each other.
Right, and then saw that, and then yeah, either they divorced, later on or whatever it may be, but yeah, he would,
He
or
takes
he would
over the
end.
hardware store,
Exactly. I was just getting ready to say, yeah, he
or
ended
he
up.
goes to become a painter. The guy was trying to get him to
Oh
go become
yeah,
a painter and make more
yeah,
money.
make more money, but you break your back, So, but well, I'm glad you enjoyed the movie. So,
Hmm.
another, uh, what flashback to the '70s. So,
Yes.
but that's that was my coming of age time too.
There you
So.
go. And my last couple movies have been movies that are fun but also make you sad. So you hit me with one of those too.
Oh well, so it wasn't intentional. So I was,
Well, mine aren't either, but
although when I
it's
think about it, yeah, now see, Clockwork Orange, Jaws, and then now this movie, yeah, somebody dies in most of the movies.
Not Caddyshack. Nobody died in Caddyshack.
You're right. Even the gopher did. Even the gopher
Yeah.
didn't die.
It was
So
supposed
yeah,
to die, but it didn't. It
right,
survived.
right. But there was the implication that somebody was going to die.
So
So
yes, the intention was for the gopher to die, but it did not.
exactly, yeah. Or for all the gophers.
Yes.
So well,
Varmint.
again, I'm glad you liked the movie, and I hope it was a good watch for you. That you didn't feel
Mhm.
like it was, um, 2 hours of, oh my god, I don't know if I can
No.
get through this. So
No. Like I said, whenever I saw Annette, I was like, oh brother Annette.
oh, and
Generally it was cool.
yeah,
At least I liked her fur coat always.
oh yeah, yes. That
When
was
we
the other
saw
thing.
her.
I don't think Tony owned anything other than that leather jacket,
Yeah.
and he
But
always
it
looked like he was freezing to death in some of the scenes. Where
mhm.
I don't know what time of the year it was, but it looked like he was a little chilly there at night walking along the streets.
Yes, indeed. But that tracks. He probably did only own that. It's probably a
Yeah,
nice leather jacket, but
yeah,
he
scraped
scraped and
by.
layawayed to get that leather jacket.
Exactly. So,
Well, yeah, I hope that people enjoy this. I hope that you check out Saturday Night Fever if you haven't. Be aware it's not just a fun dancing movie.
yeah,
Um,
there's more to
there's
it
some
than
real
that.
stuff happening, but there is some fun dancing in it.
Yes, and
Uh,
the music's great.
the
If
music's
nothing
great.
else,
Yeah,
yeah,
check out the
listen to the
soundtrack.
soundtrack.
You get a lot of fun Bee Gees written tunes, and then some other fun things like Disco
Mhm.
Inferno and Disco Duck and that kind of stuff.
Casey and the Sunshine Band.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah. There's the whole kind of conglomeration all wrapped up into one soundtrack. So,
yeah, it's very fun. I do really enjoy disco. I've listened to Sylvester a lot of
okay,
late. I do.
yeah,
You Make Me Feel Mighty Real.
uh-huh,
Although I
okay.
don't ever listen to the whole song because it's like 8 minutes long and I don't have time for that. Um, I usually listen to the first like 4 minutes because
Okay.
you get the gist.
I don't think I've ever heard the whole thing. So,
It's too long.
well,
Who
okay.
has? It's just more of him
I
going,
don't think I
make
ever
me
knew until now
feel.
that it was 8 minutes long. Maybe I just turned it off and thinking it was over.
Probably.
So,
It is just a lot of like, make me feel mighty real, make me feel mighty real. It's just it goes on for a long time.
oh well.
Um, so it's like I get the point. Thank you, Sylvester. But yeah, thank you everybody for listening. Please leave us a review, hopefully a positive one, rating, response, whatever. You can follow us on Instagram at Some of Our Parts Pod. You can see all the other movies that we've talked about, get clues about what's coming next. And with that, bye bye.
Take care.